All right, class, here we go. This is the Unit 5 Essential Questions. And remember, we're going to look at all five standard class. Right now, you were assigned one, and honors, you were assigned three. And normally, honors, you would have had all five. Standard, you would have had at least two or three at this point as well. So, because you're home, we've been told to not slam you quite as much as we would have if we were in school for obvious reasons. Right off the bat, you can see up top here we have use the ebook if you need any other help. So the film clip notes that you took, they should be plenty, but you guys know the ebook's always there to give you the extra bit of information if you need or clarification. I would put the section, chapter and section in the ebook with each one of these down below to let you know where you can find information. Now, number one, there were so many sections, I really didn't put them all down, but number one's by far the most involved. And so I have all five listed here, and I'm just going to come down through right now to each one. I'm not really going to go into a ton of detail more than what I already have typed. It's more me reading over this with you, maybe adding a few insights in. So again, standard, you're doing one. Just look down through these five. Which one do you feel the most comfortable with? It has these skill sets here, as we've been doing all year, reasoning, interpretation, synthesis, and so forth. Honors, again, pick up the three that you'd like to do out of the five. And you would not be doing this at the end of the unit, so this is being made Monday, the first day back in school for you online. So let's look at number one. How did American life and society change during the decade, during the 1920s? And there's a bunch of stuff happening here with culture and just the way society was running normally. So if you remember back when we were in school, we finished off World War I. And so World War I was just before the 20s, obviously. The war ends in 1918, and then 1919, the treaty signed. And you have to remember also, during World War I was horrific. We had the flu epidemic, the pandemic. Post-war, we also had the war itself, where we lost quite a few men, even though we were only involved for a relatively short period of time. So the big thing is we became very isolated in the 20s, kind of kept to ourselves. Remember the decade or so before that, 2 decades before that, we were in imperialism expanding over the globe, trading with a lot of different people. We don't stop trading per se, but we definitely become more isolated, worried about ourselves, kind of taking a step back from the world stage. So that would be the first one here. Two, remember during World War I as well, to me the biggest effect really of that war, the result of it, outside of the map of Europe being redrawn and whatnot, would definitely be the Red Scare. We know that Russia became the first communist country in the world, and to this day we're still fighting communists and kind of bang heads with them. So the Red Scare, all communist flags are red, represents the blood overthrow of the government. Women getting the right to vote was big. We know because of World War I, all the progressive movement and the suffrage movement for years and years was trying to get women the right to vote. What finally put them over the top was, after World War I, the men looked back and realized that women were a huge part of our success, taking them to the factory jobs and whatnot. So that was what got them over the hump, if you will. And I didn't write it in, but it's the 19th Amendment. With this, women really got a new sense of freedom, having now the right to vote, and just things really started changing. The flapper, it's the image of a young woman hiking her skirt up above the knees, cutting her hair short, wearing lots of makeup. Just women really trying to represent that they don't have to do what men want them to do anymore. They can be what they want to be, go to college and do other things. So the flapper was a big thing. The film clip did a good job of covering that. Economically, which is going to help lead us into the Great Depression, it was a major change in the 20s. We've always had credit. Back, to say during George Washington's time, you could, if you were going to buy a home, you could have went to a bank, got a loan to buy things. But it was used for big items like that. In the 20s, people started using credit on everyday items, food, clothing, jewelry, whatever. And so, again, that's not good. Credit is essentially spending money that you don't have. And they began abusing credit. So, again, it's typically just for major items, not everyday items. And this is also going to be the major reason. Trying to think down below here. That's why you're doing the budget project. That'll be down later. So to help you become fiscally responsible, we have the budget project for this unit. Standard, it's an option. Honors, it's something you have to do. Anti-evolution was a thing in the 20s. We were very conservative. It was a very conservative decade. We know prior to this it was lean a little bit liberal, if you will. But 20s, we had three Republican presidents back to back to back, and with this all this conservatism was a very devout Christian thought process. The teaching of evolution was actually banned in some schools across the nation. And evolution, of course, is the teaching that we evolved from. We evolved, of course, from apes and so forth. Well, the teaching in Christianity is the direct opposite of that. So this one teacher went to trial and could have been put in prison for the teaching of evolution when he wasn't supposed to. And so it's a major case back then. It's called the Scopes trial. From this, we have prohibition. Prohibition is going to be throughout the 20s. It actually lasts about 13 years because it was a very conservative decade. The thought was that drinking was a sin. It only led to crime and people doing things that they shouldn't. So all the bars, saloons were closed. You could not make alcohol, sell alcohol. It was completely forbidden. Hollywood's made a lot of films on this. You go back to the mafia type films with Al Capone and whatnot. So prohibition was that time frame again when alcohol was banned completely, and that was the 18th Amendment, and it's going to go for 13 years. Some of the bigger outcomes, the mafia actually is created. They realized that, hey, we can make a lot of money off selling this stuff, moonshine and whatnot. We're going to make our own alcohol and sell it. And so the police were trying to police this for 13 years, very futile task to try to do it. And so crime more than quadrupled. So the government did learn a lesson. They're going to reverse the 18th Amendment with the 21st Amendment, which then makes alcohol legal again. So the 18th bans it. We tried it for 13 years, and then the 21st reverses it. KKK is going to peak in the 20s. We're, again, a very isolationist decade. Because of World War One, slight immigrant sentiments kind of took place in the country, so KKK is going to thrive. And after the 20s, they dropped steadily from there and all the way to today, where they're pretty much non-existent. New tech during the 20s, just average. What was the average person like before the 20s and after? Well, the average person before the 20s lived on a farm. They did not have electricity and so forth. The average person during the 20s and after now has a car, has electricity. They live in a city now versus a farm. So the average American, again, switched in the 20s to what we had never been before. We had mostly farmers before this. And, of course, there was horse-drawn carriages. Now we're in the industrial age where we have all that new tech. All right, again, a lot was there. We want to kind of cover most of this, actually all of this, you need to at least mention in your paragraph that you write. So this would be a lengthy paragraph for sure. To me, it's fairly easy to write about because I give you a lot of detail here along with the film clip. Number two, short and to the point, what advances in American culture were evident from the Harlem Renaissance? Two main things. The main thing that comes out of it is Jazz Age, makes it up to Harlem. Very famous guy, Duke Ellington. Literature also became pretty prevalent in the African American community. So chapter 10, section 3, if you need more detail, the film clip did a pretty good job of covering this. And again, chapter 10, section 3 in ebook will give you more detail if you need it. 3, what factors led the U.S. Economy into the Great Depression? Several key things. And again, ebooks, I'm referring you to most of these sections where they're looking at the ebook. Massive overproduction of goods. So the farmers, because of World War I, were all ramped up. They're making massive amounts of food for the war effort. Well, but when the war ends, we have way more product than we can possibly sell. Okay, that's a very bad thing when you have making more things than people can actually buy. The income gap was huge at this time between the rich and poor. You had to have and have-nots, but you're always going to have that. But here was particularly bad. It was really extreme. The poor were extremely poor and the rich were extremely rich. Living on credit, we already mentioned it. Again, it's why we're doing our budget project. Again, just living beyond your means. So if you make 40 grand a year, you should not be spending more than that. And the average American was back then. This is one thing that's again leading up to this Great Depression. There's not any one thing that caused it. It's going to be all these things combined. This one's going to really help lead to that stock crash in 1929. And with the stock crashing, as we have just seen with what we're dealing with now, it's flatlined a little bit. We rebounded. Now the Senate passed that, Congress passed the bill to give us some stimulus money. We're literally seeing very much what happened in 2008 and 1929 in a lot of ways. So there's comparisons there and contrast, obviously. But yeah, people are buying stocks on marginal credit. So literally people not having cash to go get some more shares of stocks in the company they wanted. They actually used credit to buy more, which is just a level of insanity. That's horrific. And so this is again going to lead to that stock crash in 1929. Again, the ebook will give you more detail if you need it. Number 4, how was American life affected by the economic disaster? And just common sense, obviously the Great Depression. So really, how bad was it? How bad did it get? And that's what you want to write about here. Again, ebook section. People lost their jobs. When you lose your job, you can't pay your bills. If you can't pay your bills, you're going to become homeless. And if you become homeless, of course, you're homeless. So it creates things, the shanty towns called Hoovervilles. A whole domino effect occurred here. So you want to write about some specifics here on how it affected people. And again, chapter 11, section 2. The film clip did a really good job, so you probably won't need much more than that. What was the purpose and results of the New Deal to help us with the Great Depression? Well, of course, the purpose was to get us out of that Great Depression, get people back on their feet, get them a job. That is the priority, get people a job. Almost all the programs that FDR created were job creation legislation. Results, tons of results. The 3 that we still have today, actually the 4 that we still have today, the welfare state was created. Things were so desperate and so bad in the Great Depression, the government felt that was forced to come in and give people money. And of course, today that's been only expanded upon to the nth degree. Last I checked, we have about 40 million Americans out of the 320 that are on welfare, food stamps. And that, again, was created due to the Great Depression back in 1929. We just never got rid of it. We've only expanded it every day since. The FDIC was created to get the banking situation under control. All the banks crashed during the Depression. And today we still have the FDIC. If you walk into any bank, you will see those stickers plastered everywhere. It's to ensure people's money in their savings accounts, because everyone lost their savings in the Great Depression, or most everyone did. And so this was to help people not lose that money ever again. SEC was created to make sure the stock market never really crashed again officially, like completely crashed, like in 1929. Again, the one we're experiencing now, we didn't have a complete crash. We lost about 30% of our value in the market, which is a lot. But it can get a whole lot worse. We'll have to wait and see what the COVID does. So the SEC is designed to keep an eye on the stock market and have safeguards in there to make sure we don't have another massive crash. Social Security, during the Great Depression in 29, a lot of people that were elderly really struggled, didn't have enough savings, so they really struggled to make ends meet. Social Security is created under FDR to make sure when people retire, they have at least some money coming in. So today, every one of you will pay into that. I've been paying into it for years, so it's still around, where a little bit of money from each of your paychecks goes into basically the savings that the government holds. And then when you turn 65 to 67 plus, you start getting a monthly check back from the government based on the amount of money that you put in throughout your life working a job. And there, again, it's chapter and sections from the ebook. Okay. So that's some verbal to go over some of this in more detail. This document itself will be more than enough what you need to get it done. So that's going to be it. Any questions, obviously email me direct. Take care.